Excellence, Madame.
Your Excellency, Mrs. Michael Jean, Secretary General of the OIF, Mr. Laurent Thomas, Under Secretary General in the UN Food and Agricultural Organization, Excellency Mr. Patrick Gomes, Secretary General of the ACP Group, Honorable Ambassadors, Excellencies, representatives of international and regional organizations, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. In my capacity as Chairman of the ACP Committee of Ambassadors, it is a great pleasure and a signal honor for me to co-host by the ACP Secretariat, the FAO, the OIF, together with the support of COMSEC and the community of Portuguese-speaking countries on the subject, integrated rural development, strengthening women and youth empowerment through jobs and entrepreneurship. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I'm very happy to salute in particular the presence here of our distinguished guests who kindly accepted our invitation, in particular Mrs. Michael Jean, who now, Madam Secretary General, let me say in all modesty that we greatly appreciate your action in ensuring the dissemination of French-speaking peoples throughout the world, and also your tackling of major global and have traveled long distances today. Despite your heavy timetable, we are grateful that you were able to find the time to come and share your ideas, knowledge, and experience on ways and means of harnessing South-South cooperation and triangular cooperation in order to overcome the challenges facing many women and young people in our countries and our communities in the area of agriculture and rural development. If I take stock of what has happened since the first symposium on South-South and Triangular Cooperation held here in 2011, I am pleased to note that considerable progress has been made to the extent that this mechanism, which is complementary to North-South cooperation, is henceforward the object of increased interest and attention. The fact that the symposium is co-hosted and supported by a great number of key stakeholders, and it benefits from the participation of many distinguished and experienced people, attests to the importance and value that our member states and our partners attach to this instrument. Ladies and gentlemen, we continue to be up against constant changes in global economic sphere, characterized by the emergence of new opportunities on an integrated global market. We are also often made to as to how South-South and triangular cooperation can build capacity in women and young people in a rural environment. I hope that our discussions in the symposium will make it possible to study possibilities for effective participation of the ACP group in South-South cooperation programs and to come up with a process which would make it possible for the group to contribute to strengthening partnerships for South-South and triangular cooperation. Let me end by wishing you
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur l'Ambassadeur.
Thank you very much, Ambassador.
To call on Patrick Gomez, who is the Secretary General of the ACP. Mr. Gomez.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, Excellency Ambassador Julien Menga, our distinguished Chairman of the Committee of Ambassadors, Your Excellency Madame Michaela Jean, Secretary General of Francophonie, Monsieur Laurent Thomas, Assistant Director General of the FAO, Director Roberto Rodolfi of the European Commission, Honorable Idrissou, distinguished ambassadors, excellencies, representatives of international and regional organizations, tout le monde. We are indeed very happy that you have come to the ACP House to share with us these experiences. We are very happy indeed to acknowledge the presence of our Secretary General, Madame Jean, whose involvement has been recorded as the foundation of why this event will be such a success. She was crucial in defining the theme and is here to give us the feature address. The presence, of course, of Mr. Laurent Thomas, who brought about FAO's deep commitment to make the symposium happen, makes us very grateful. My recognition also goes to the community of Portuguese-speaking, CPLP, for being with us, and also for the presence of the Youth Division in Catherine Ellis from the Commonwealth Secretariat. Some time ago in January 2011, our first symposium was held here, and we had the distinguished honor of Michel Severino launching his book, France, Afrique, le temps. We now have an opportunity also that later this afternoon, another author will launch her book, Poverty is a Person, in the presence of Dr. Professor Rajak Tali of the University of Louisville. Later in 2014, the ACP Group organized a second symposium with support at that time from the German Ministry for Development Cooperation. And at that symposium, we attempted to look at more significant the empirical information and data that makes South-South cooperation something tangible in the lives of people. That symposium focused on analyzing critical factors involved in integrating South-South and triangular cooperation into development cooperation for all the member states of the ACP group. And we did a mapping and case study exercise utilizing a core sample of 128 cases to identify the major sectors in which South-South cooperation, both in terms of the needs analysis and their implementation, have been relatively successful. Today's symposium, which follows on from the first two, is focused on making things even more operational through concrete actions. By selecting the theme, Integrated Rural Development, strengthening the empowerment of women and youth through entrepreneurship and employment. We would therefore like to highlight a major development challenge facing many of our ACP countries in order to find solutions, not only to underline and understand the circumstances, but to find ways and means by which we can overcome the challenges and build progress, especially in the area where women will be empowered and youth will find meaningful jobs. Women and young people represent a large percentage of our populations in ACP countries, and a majority live in rural settings where agriculture is an important potential source of activities and jobs. By supporting women and young people, we are therefore contributing to stimulating economic growth that would benefit families and communities while reducing and overcoming poverty. We thank all of you for being here and being so disposed and energized to share your experiences so that the flourishing potential development of women and youth will become a reality in our lifetime. We wish the symposium to lead the creation of an action plan which would reveal the key areas of intervention to be targeted within the framework of a strategy aimed at overcoming the challenges facing women and young people. The plan should also identify primary existing and potential stakeholders, as well as their roles and responsibilities. Once again, therefore, thank you very much for being with us here in the ACP family, your family, and let us make this a great success. Thank you very much.
Mr. Gomes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Son Excellence, Madame Michaëlle Jean.
Her Excellency Michaëlle Jean, Secretary General of the Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie, OIF, Ambassador Julien Menga, Ambassador of Congo to the Kingdom of Belgium, and Chair of the Committee of Ambassadors of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific Group Committee of Ambassadors. His Excellency Ambassador Gomes.
Pacific Group of States. Your Excellency and dear friend Mr. Roberto Ridolfi, Director for Sustainable Growth and Development in the European Commission. Your Excellencies, Ambassadors, dear participants, it is my pleasure on behalf of Mr. Graziano da Silva, Director General of FAO, to join Ambassador Patrick Gomes and Her Excellency Michaëlle Jean to welcome you in this important symposium. Today we have with us a wide range of voices, ambassadors, development practitioners, policymakers, representing ACP countries and the Global South to share during 2 days good practices, innovation and partnership for integrated rural development. Let me go a little bit out of my talking point and take some liberty with them and tell you how sincerely we in FAO are pleased about what is going to happen in these 2 days. We are pleased for 2 reasons. Number one, we are pleased about this partnership. ACP Secretariat, Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie, European Commission and European Union member countries, ACP countries, together with FAO to discuss, work together as a strong partnership to deliver results under the Agenda 2030, approved by UN member countries, where all UN member countries decided to leave no one behind by 2030. And this is something very important. We all realize that without a strong partnership, we will not succeed. No single country, no single organization will succeed without joining hands with others. The second reason for us to be very pleased to be here today is that we are going to speak of concrete actions to support youth and women. And youth and women are too often the one left behind, the ones that are further behind. And we want to share experience here today and tomorrow to see how we can help, let's say, empower the youth and women to have a healthy and happy life and generate for us good, let's say, income from agriculture. 2015 was a year of strong direction. We had the UN summit launching the Sustainable Development Goals. We had also the Addis Abeba conference on financing for development that set the directions and the model for financing the ambition of the Agenda 2030. And we had at the end of the year the COP21 with very important recommendation and action plan regarding climate change mitigation and adaptation. Now 2016 is a year for delivery, is a year for action. Time is short. 2030 is less than 15 years in front of us. And we sincerely believe that South-South cooperation and triangular cooperation as a complement to the essential official development assistance is a cost-effective means to achieve results. We believe that there are many good experiences right now in the world and within the ACP community that can be reproduced, that can be upscaled. And this is what we are going to discuss over the coming 2 days. So I challenge all of us to be excited of the prospect of developing joint vision and action plan, as Ambassador Gomez mentioned, for multiplying, replicating the good practices and innovation we will hear about today. We at FAO are proud to stand by a committed mandate with SSC as a key pillar of our work. We have more than 20 years of experience in facilitating South-South cooperation and triangular cooperation partnership. And we are committed to bring our contribution to the discussion here, bring our contributions that will result in concrete action. I personally look forward to joining the discussion and FAO supporting ACP countries, making connection, facilitating South-South and triangular cooperation, to help meet each country's development priorities and our global commitment to sustainable development. This is clearly a strategic priority for FAO for the simple reason that we are experiencing firsthand that South-South cooperation and triangular cooperation are very efficient complement to the most needed official development assistance as a cost-effective means to reach our development goals. Thank you very much.
And how do we upscale? How do we...
Good morning.
Your Excellency is all the friend here in the... I would like to thank you. Merci beaucoup. Obrigado. Grazie. Because the presence of the Commission here in this I would like to say that languages have never been an obstacle to cooperation. As a matter of fact, the European Union is built around that. Biodiversity of culture, languages, practices, culture, customs, this is what we are very, very proud of, and that's what we try to promote. As a matter of fact, I would say that the first big triangular cooperation is the Cotonou. The triangle is 3 sides. Cotonou is 105 sides, but it's beautiful in a sense that the intra-ACP, this very organization here, which we want to defend, is exactly the testimony that we want to do more. The intra-ACP strategy, since we are in the house of the ACP, is concentrating on jobs and growth. is concentrating on private sector development to create the jobs. It's not government that creates jobs. It's the private sector. But we want to create sustainable jobs. Not very many. I'm sorry. Why? Because it's not attractive. Because they don't see a future sending their children to Harvard University. So they move to the town. And in the town, there is a big concentration, the town will not read, and then migration and so forth. So investments to create sustainable jobs. I think this is the key for you.
Signor Ridolfi, grazie molto per la sua...
I'm very proud that a sister of the Caribbean, Right Honorable Michael Jean, is here with us today, inspiring the work and inspiring the theme of this symposium. And it is against that background, we're very happy and invite you to give us a feature address. Michael.
C'est un vrai bonheur.
It's an extreme pleasure, and I'm honored to be here. Thank you, Secretary General, dear friend, Patrick Gomes. I keep saying you can't say no to him. We have a lot of affection for him because he has a lot of affection for us.
Monsieur Laurent Thomas.
Ambassador Menga, thank you for your statement. Mr. Laurent Thomas, Mr. Rodolfi, it's a good thing that we have to talk about the diversity of languages, and I salute you in Italian, in fact. Ladies and gentlemen, we are all here, men and women of quality. Dear friends, I salute you with great pleasure. You, the UN organization, Food and Agriculture Organization, the representatives from the Commonwealth Secretariat, from the community of Portuguese-speaking countries and the European Union. Our something. It's a matter of unifying our strengths, our words, our advocacies. And all this because many of the member states of the OIF are also members of the ACP group, of the and more than ever, we need to cultivate this wealth of links in our organizations which cover the peoples of 5 continents. These links reformulation exchange. These links reflect the new equilibrium transcontinental area covering 80 states and governments over 5 continents. Now, in this period of challenges, trials, and dangers, we embarked on those partnerships, and we obviously want to renew them and readjust them in order to act better, to act strategically for the benefit of the peoples of our member states. Common concerns and objectives, yes, but let me also add common philosophy, vision, and values. On certain statistics, on certain figures which dishonor our generation and a generation which preceded us. Do we want to enter into history? Because you have to keep asking this question. Do we want to go as the generation which had the necessary means to take action, but which saw the situation of women becoming worse. Who said half of the human race is outside the bounds of equality? So we have to make that half come back into the bounds of equality. In a counterweight to, you have the right of the. Now, this was said by Victor Hugo 2 centuries ago, ladies and gentlemen. So, the question is, what have we done over the last 2 centuries? Has time just stopped as regards women's rights? Yes, there has been considerable progress. Proof of this is I am here with you, and there are other women who are decision makers as well. But for how much longer are we to note that in the world, 60% of the 805 people suffering from hunger are young women, girls, and in rural areas get low. So these inequalities, this persistent discrimination are unacceptable. They are challenged to mere reason because we can't say that we don't know. Studies have proven this. If you give women
Alors, si nous voulons vraiment lutter contre la pauvreté.
And it shouldn't only be the business of women. I am pleased to see intelligent men embrace
Être ici sur ce thème, c'est dire que vous.
And being here discussing this subject means that you are intelligent men. And I think we can applaud also the women and young people who are here.
Nous ne pouvons qu'être des partenaires.
We are partners of quality. We can make a difference. Without us, nothing is possible. It's clear.
Alors, c'est ce qui explique que.
This is why, for the last 20 years, the OIF has an all-embracing in all the history of mankind, they have never been in greater numbers. Young people are synonymous with energy, dynamism, creativity, and commitment. So if we don't want to actions, these young people, these women, I visit them every time I travel throughout the French-speaking world in order to listen to them, to endorse their innovative and courageous initiatives. What I have noted is often marks of genius, marks of intelligence, relevance. But how many decision makers know about this? They don't have information. They are unaware. They don't take the time to observe, to understand, to appreciate this seed bed of ideas and solutions. Really, it's a waste. Why can't we take account of this vitality? We keep showing indifference to them. It's sometimes a guilt trip. Each of us needs to be humble enough to say, I don't have the answers, all the answers. Answers can also come from those. So you need to be humble. You shouldn't overlook solutions coming from young people and women. You don't need much in order to it is up to us to get these women and children help them access honorable and jobs. Mr. Rodolfi said so. We have to help them to move from the informal sector to the formal sector. It is up to us to help them develop their activities, to reach a further stage, a higher stage in quality, increase their market outlets, create wealth, and contribute, therefore, to the development of their community, their village, their region, and their countries. It's a question of security and prosperity at the local level, national level, regional level, continental and international levels. And we know this. And this is something we need to spread everywhere. It's not enough just to say, yes, we know all this. It's already been said time and time again. No, that is why I'm happy at this central theme, Secretary General. All we have to do is, from a strategic standpoint, to act together, strategically. We, for all, decided to move up to a higher stage last year on the basis and given the objectives of a very ambitious roadmap. You need to be ambitious. A roadmap adopted at our last summit held in Dakar. We have been focusing on an economic strategy and a strategy for the youth. And we established as a priority, structural priorities, that is, support for all our forces and putting all our resources in order to support entrepreneurship in women and young people. In job creation areas. And I feel there is a momentum here, a real convergence, because we all agree on the immediate need to act in order to create further possibilities, stability, growth. Wants to set up. But obviously what we want to do is to expand this on the regional level in order to create a multiplier effect with all the other countries in our region. And our teams next week will be in Senegal, in Madagascar, to identify the infant industries and enterprises which we shall be financing and supporting in order to attain a critical mass. We have a lot of common challenges. We can also share our solutions, our experiences, our know-how. We all agree on the urgent need to give women and young people the means to innovate, be the architects of their own lives. And make no mistake. So I wanted to speak to you today in order to tell you as well, let us not spare any effort for education and high-quality training for all. Education and training in sync with the needs of the employment market. So let us keep up our efforts for sustainable development. This commitment we also renewed in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia it's a conference of parties 21. Francophonie made a contribution through its Institute for Sustainable Development, which supports our member states in drawing up national policies and strategies of sustainable development and implementing them in the areas of energy and environment. This includes official and support for supporting the electoral process in many countries. Obviously, we will come back to this, Ambassador. In your country as well, we have a program. Good governance, respect for rights and freedoms. We, together with the expertise at our disposal, also and inclusiveness in a calm atmosphere. I can speak to you about our mission and our programs for linguistic and cultural diversity, fruitful diversity. Speaking about diversity, promote and we it's an integral part of the human being. We know we need to carry out these missions head on, take up these challenges together. Because you cannot act effectively and sustainably for development if peace, security of a country is not ensured, if rule of law is not complied with, if children, young men and women do not have access to high quality education, if the conditions for generating resources and economic growth are present, but to the detriment of the environment and common goods. We need in this necessary vision to better communicate, to support each other better, to strengthen each other, depending on our privilege expertise. If you act in isolation, no matter how powerful you are, you condemn yourself to acting in an incomplete and imperfect manner. So let us change the paradigm. Let us develop South-South and tripartite cooperation, which Francophonie has been encouraging for a long time and which it wants to deepen. But let me say to you, Mr. Rodolphe, let us go further. Let us forget these terms of North and South, which are of our generation and which harken back to other practices than the ones we want to develop henceforward. Let us let us benefit from all know-how, from all experience, from all the skills, all the human and financial resources which have already present in attaining objectives that we all want. Let us create networks. Let us benefit more from ICT. Others already use them to their benefit. Obviously, it's so this networking, Francophonie has been using it for a long time. It capitalizing on it through its networks of parliamentarians, mayors, university, women, young children, civil society, institutional, professional networks, working on all 5 continents. These French-speaking networks can be translate this into concrete actions together. I can tell you that at a point in time when some people call into question the universal nature of rights and fundamental freedoms, which is the very essence of our common humanity, this is the banner which we need to hold. Let us not give.
Merci beaucoup, madame.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Hugo serait très fier d'avoir.
Victor Hugo would have been very proud of a Secretary General like yourself at the head of the OIF.
Je voudrais maintenant à la.
And now, I would like to change up the seating arrangement at the head table and ask others to join us. I would like to give the floor to Enrique Banze.
Of the ACP. Enrique.
Okay, thank you. Muito obrigado.
Thank you very much. To ensure linguistic balance, we move into the next session, and I will be asking the Secretary General of OIF to move to the seat that has been set aside for her, marked reserved. And I'd just like to ask the Chair of the Committee of Ambassadors to move this way. I think you will learn Portuguese at this rate.
E então vou.
So we will now invite members of Panel 1 to come up, starting with my compatriot, the Ambassador of Mozambique, and she will be chairing this session. We will also be joined by the Secretary General, Patrick Gomes. He will remain in his seat. The Director remains in his seat too. I will ask Catherine Ellis to come up to her seat over here.
To help me. Brave.
Brave is very well known here in the ACP, in ACP circles. And my dear friend Manuel Lapão, I will move as well. I'm not in my seat.
E depois teremos também o.
And we will also have Rogel. Before we begin, I just want to give you a general overview of our program. And given we are behind time, I will attempt to be as brief as possible, and I will therefore ask speakers to be as brief as possible without losing the essence of the content you wish to convey. We have 2 days for our program. Today's session will essentially be a general debate of the questions we will be discussing in the various sessions. Now we will have the thematic session with general issues, and then we will have specific themes dealt with throughout today's proceedings. By the end of the day, we will be having the book launch by the author, who is seated here, and we will then complete today's proceedings. Tomorrow, we will focus solely on interagency discussions. That is, the organizations that have that are hosting the event: the ACP, OIF, FAO, CPLP, and Commonwealth. So we will be focusing on much more thematic debate. I'd like to thank other participants for participating in the proceedings so far. We wish to have your contribution in today's proceedings. Tomorrow's group will be much smaller, involving the agencies and speakers we've heard from today. To conclude, I just want to point out we have 3 languages. We have in the first booth Portuguese with interpreters Marta Calleiros and Francisco Valada, who will be interpreting into Portuguese. And in the second booth, the English booth, we will have Stuart Rogers and Monde Zaza. Next, in booth 3, we have in the French booth Ahmad Faye and Chris Anga Bongo. I hope I've pronounced your names correctly. Thank you very much. I will very quickly go into our next session. Chris, thank you very much, Enrique.
Rick, I know we're already more than a half an hour behind now after some very inspiring speeches. So I hope that with all due respect to those now on the panel, that we can keep our discours as brief as possible so we can quickly go to the meat of this matter. The crux of this matter are these case studies that we want to discuss as quickly as possible. But in the interim, I pass the word to Madame l'Ambassadeur de Mozambique, Ana Nemba Wayen. Madame l'Ambassadeur.
Muito obrigado.
Thank you very much. As was stated, we have very little time, and so I just want to point to I don't want to disappoint my compatriot, the Assistant Secretary General, and therefore I would be chairing in English, but CPLP will take care of the language issue. Having said that,
The panelists, or all of you, to this first session, which will lead with setting the scene on the South-South cooperation and triangular cooperation. And for this session, we'll have our panelists, which are here already with us. And now I will introduce all of them. We have first His Excellency Patrick Ignatius Gomez, our ACP Secretary General. And prior to this position, His Excellency Patrick Gomez is holding a position of the Ambassador of Guyana to Belgium, European Community, as well as WTO and FAO. So Ambassador Gomez, or SG Gomez, is a well-known among ourselves. And then we'll have Mr. Laurent Thomas. He is the Assistant Director General at Technical Cooperation and Program Management at FAO. He is an agroeconomist by training. Mr. Thomas has over 33 years of experience in development and humanitarian assistance and has worked on food and agriculture issues throughout his career. He now oversees the coordination and implementation of FAO's 5 strategic programs. Of presenters that we will have today, and of course, not least at FAO as well, our beloved brave Nisale. She is the Deputy Director of Social Protection Division at FAO, where she also coordinates the work of gender equality and women's empowerment. Ms. Nisale was Malawian ambassador to the ACP and chaired the Committee of Ambassadors during her tenure of office. This was during the negotiation of the second revision of Cotonou Agreement, and also chaired Subcommittee of Trade and Investment, as well as the Subcommittee on Development Cooperation when negotiating the 11th European Development Fund. So, you know, she is very well versed with the ACP and now with the FAO. So how lucky we are. And we have also Ms. Catherine Ellis. the Director of Youth Affairs Division at Commonwealth Secretariat, which fosters youth people's talents through social, political, and economic empowerment in the 53 countries of the Commonwealth. So you're most welcome amongst us. Mr. Senhor Lapão Manuel.
Mr. Manuel Lapão.
Este é o diretor da cooperação.
Is the Director for Cooperation of the Community of Portuguese Language Countries. Mr. Lapão was appointed in 2007, and the following year he launched the strategy on the vision for cooperation of the CPLP. Prior to joining the CPLP, he worked as a consultant in a firm that focused on entrepreneurship and economic development, where he managed more than 20 projects in all of the CPLP countries, the PALOP countries, countries with Portuguese as their official language. Welcome.
Of course, he's not here at the panel. He will speak from the floor. We will have Mr. Roger-Julien. Espero que tenha pronunciado bem o nome dele. He's a UN Intelligence Coordinator and Chief of Staff at the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation. So this is the panel that we will have to this session. For this session, we'll illustrate the ACP Secretariat's vision for expanded intra-ACP South-South cooperation and triangular cooperation in support of integrated rural development and women and youth entrepreneurship. While the FAO will present its role as South-South cooperation facilitator, which involves facilitating matchmaking between countries, demand and supply, ensuring the quality of South-South exchange and diverse and flexible South-South cooperation means for exchange. The FAO will also highlight its work in women and youth empowerment, demonstrating how country results can be upscaled through South-South cooperation. Last but not least, both Commonwealth Secretariat and CPLP will illustrate how they are working with countries across the ACP region, fostering knowledge sharing and capacity development. Of course, this session will surely inspire a vision moving forward based on the best practice of the following session and leading to action planning to upscale this best practice through South-South and triangular cooperation. This said, I will straightforward give this floor to the Secretary General.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ambassador. I need very briefly just to emphasize how, from the perspective of the ACP, we see this method and this approach of South-South and triangular cooperation. Principally, we see it as adding value and not replacing the traditional means of development finance. In that sense, it is meant to be complementary to. It's complementary in a way in which, along with the comparative advantage that we speak about in economics, South-South and triangular cooperation provides us with contextual advantage. What do I mean by that? It means that from local solutions and local experiences, we are able to generate solutions to issues that confront countries or people or communities in similar circumstances. So the context is very important in how we are able to utilize the benefit of experiences gathered. Secondly, we found in the work that was done a very simple hypothesis or principle. The better the needs analysis is done, the better the results and outcome will be. In other words, great emphasis has to be given at the outset of identifying the need that you wish to address, and not so much the quantum of resources you want to use. So the better the need is understood, and the more precisely it is, the better it's likely to have the results that you wish. The third aspect is that we want to use knowledge, or manage knowledge, or garner knowledge, or the accumulation of knowledge is such that it is two dimensions. By definition, knowledge is a social commodity. If I am aware of something and keep it to myself, then I defeat the purpose of knowledge. By its very definition, it is to be shared. And knowledge that is shared, particularly from our South-South and Triangle Cooperation, must be able to inform policy. Must be able to inform policies so that the policies would be different by which empowerment can take place, by which youth can find the opportunities for jobs. So it's not knowledge for the sake of knowledge, or knowledge just for the sake of sharing it, what we call horizontally or laterally. It must be such that it goes up and down, up to the policy making level, and therefore policy making will be better informed with knowledge that is grounded in the context to which it is going to apply, because the need has been clearly identified, and then be able to deliver in the circumstances in which we wish it to deliver. These were coming out very clearly in the work that Karine Nussou is here with us. Karine, the consultant, looking at our case studies and identifying some sectors. And a sector that came to the fore very heavily is health. That health sector has a great scope. And we intend in the ACP, with the intra-ACP program that we will be doing now in the 11th EDF, to put enhancing health systems in ACP countries, with a particular reference to the Ebola-affected countries. And therefore, the needs across the system of health, not necessarily training medical practitioners and nurses. Yes, that training is important, but if it's not seen on the systemic whole, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. If it's not seen in a whole way, then we perhaps end up by being only partially addressing the comprehensive causes that are necessary. The last and most essential point I want to make is the great value of complementarity. As was mentioned by our distinguished Right Honorable Madam Secretary General, we're so keen about synergy and coherence. And that means complementarity. That means the ensemble, the togetherness. That in fact, the togetherness that generates, in fact, from knowledge that is on the table, new knowledge. And that new knowledge is able to create new opportunities, and that is where innovation and forward thinking, and also where we find, therefore, what is a process by which we can utilize this method of South-South and Triangle Cooperation to inform policy and create the space and opportunity so that youth, as we are concentrating on youth, and women are given the opportunity and access to the land and the resources spoken about, so that they will then in turn transform their situations in which they are. Thank you very much. With those ideas, I leave it for the others to build on. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary General. Now I would like to give the floor to Dr. Thomas. You have the floor.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson, and thank you to Patrick Gomez to set clearly the direction with this very inspiring introduction. So, allow me to begin my intervention, for sake of time, probably by my conclusions. Et j'ai trois conclusions.
Well, I have three conclusions which I'd like to share with you in the discussion. The first one is that if we speak about what is at stake in terms of employment in a rich future for youth, if we are speaking about more equality for women, well, there are many solutions. But I could say that the solutions exist. And we should ensure a better sharing of information and better sharing of the solutions which have been reached in countries, a better sharing of technology in the southern countries. That's my first point. The second point is that the FAO, the UN Food Organization, is a long-standing facilitator of South-South partnership and South-South sharing. It has a lengthy experience in triangular cooperation in order to come up with very concrete solutions, like the ones we shall be discussing in the next 2 days, relating to young people and equality for women. And the third conclusion is that the ACP group is a unique community which is well suited for South-South cooperation. We are talking about countries at various stages of economic development, countries with very similar environmental zones. We know what is at stake for the small island development states. The ACP community has more than 37 small island development states. So we think that better sharing of knowledge and a better sharing of solutions in terms of development can speed up progress in each ACP country. Now, to elaborate further, the FAO has over 20 years' experience in South-South partnership. We have partners such as China, Brazil, Indonesia, Vietnam, Morocco. There are many of them. We have about 20 countries or so which contribute to finding solutions. We have worked together over the last 10 years with over 80 countries which have received expertise from these emerging economies. When we speak about South-South cooperation in FAO, we speak about concrete experiences. We are not talking about a political project. It's not something vague. It's something very concrete. I remember the symposium we held 2 years ago in Nigeria, where the Nigerian agriculture minister in his speech said that with the South-South cooperation, which we have put in place with the People's Republic of China, we have made unemployed young people into millionaires. Millionaires in Naira, the local currency. They have been put into agriculture, agribusiness, very concrete enterprises and industries. When we speak about South-South cooperation with our partners in Brazil, we speak about how to transform the international model in Brazil, which made it possible to bring millions of young Brazilians, hungry and unemployed Brazilians, into programs of a social bent, programs with support for small-scale holders in agriculture, etc. These programs can be easily replicated, and this is what we're doing with our partners in Brazil to adjust that kind of approach to countries facing the same problems. And I can continue. So there's a lot of experience out there, and we maintain that the ACP countries, in their diversity, with the same problems, could do more to share their experiences. And I think we'll have some concrete examples in the next few hours. Now, when we're talking about sharing experience and knowledge, what do you mean? Well, each ACP state has something to offer. Providing expertise, sharing good practices, technologies, ensuring that research and training institutions can be shared with others. In the FAO, we have a web portal where all countries can access the centers of excellence in various FAO member countries, covering the various areas of expertise we work in. As ACP countries, you should be in a position to express your needs and see whether other countries of the community have come up against the same problems and have found solutions. Some of your countries are in a position today to provide voluntary contribution in order to facilitate such South-South cooperation. In the ACP community, you have an exceptional partnership with the European Union and the European Development Fund. Obviously, we can facilitate a tripartite partnership, as Mr. Rodolfi mentioned, under the Cotonou Agreement, in order to ensure that the intra-ACP partnership becomes a reality. We are convinced that South-South and triangular cooperation is an extremely effective way of speeding up the development dynamic in various countries. This is all I can say at this stage. The FAO would like to be able to put its expertise at your disposal, more of its expertise at your disposal, to facilitate this partnership, which is a development model which is complementary to the traditional development model. It's an extremely important area so that together we can achieve the results coming out of the UN General Assembly as regards the 2030 agenda. Thank you.
Merci, Dr. Thomas.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas.
Floor to Ms. Nisale.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency and Chair. I think I have a slide. PowerPoint presentation. I hope there's somebody who is. Okay, but I'll continue. Wait. Okay. Yes, you can go to slide 2. Chairperson, I am very excited to be here. Without being emotional, I would say it feels like going back to your family. And that's how I feel. So I'm glad to see most of you that we spent time together the past 6 years plus when I was at ACP. But I'm excited again to come represent FAO and provide you and setting the scene on this very important topic. I want, after what Roger Thomas has indicated, I want to zoom in on the central role of women and youth in rural development and how FAO, as a broker and facilitator, working with many countries and many partners, including civil society, private sector, at country, regional, and global level, is adding value to the South-South triangular cooperation through generation of knowledge and providing policy assistance, capacity development, and technical assistance at different levels. So you go to slide number, and keep on number 2. I'm going to be very quick because a lot has been said already on setting the scene in terms of the background. However, I have one key message. 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development calls for a transformative action to end hunger and eradicate poverty. Excellencies and colleagues, we are all here because we believe that for us to have an informative and transformative action in our countries, key actors are women and youth. Because youth and women today, we agree, are the actors of change. And I thought I should emphasize this key message which has adequately been presented. It will be interesting now to go to the challenges. On rural women, women, even though they represent almost 42% of the agricultural labor force, and it can be as high as 50% in Africa, they still have enormous of challenges that actually impede them to be actually key actors and unwind their potential to be productive. And one of the key problem is because they don't have access or limited access or unequal access to productive resources such as land, limited access to services including education, rural advisory service extension, credit, social protection, including limited access to financial sectors. There are a lot of inequalities which women are actually compromised because they cannot engage effectively in the rural labor market. But even if we try as much as possible to encourage women to get involved in productive activities, we know their roles because they are heavily burdened by other unpaid care work. And if we don't take this into account, we still actually give them the ambition factors. Women also don't participate in, and limitedly so, at all levels, that is community, national, or global level, in decision-making level. And I think that was already highlighted very adequately by the Secretary General at the beginning of the session. So, to give you, we go to the next slide. To just give you an example, as far as SCP is concerned, the most important resource, land is life. It's an asset. Not only is it going to be productive for culture use, but also can be a collateral for financial resources and many other factors. But if you look at the statistics, you realize that there is inequality on land holding between men and women. And you see everything is less than 50%. However, what is very encouraging, you would see that in the Caribbean, Jamaica is progressing well. So there is potential of moving upwards. We see that in the Pacific, Samoa is doing relatively better. Botswana is also showing very good indication of progression of providing equal access on land to women. This was just to give you an example that we do have a generic problem across all our countries in terms of challenges. Now, if we don't address providing access into this productive, even we try to push in money for investment in agriculture, how do you invest when you don't own or have the access that is viable for your productivity? So that is one of the challenges, and you see how FAO and many partners are trying to address that challenge. Then we go to the youth. Youth are so key, and I'm not going to go so much into the statistics, but one challenge that I can mention about the youth by just giving you 2 words is that youth, if we don't take into account on the potential of the youth and giving the opportunity, we are creating what we call, and most people have said, a kicking time bomb. A lot of examples have been given, and we have experienced what has happened on the ground. So the issues will spill over from creating employment and giving viable means for the youth to be productive to moving into even instability and vulnerability. So that is quite essential. Let's go to the next slide. So the good news is that the same agenda 2030 has realized the importance of South-South triangular cooperation because it calls for revitalizing international collaboration that goes beyond the traditional forms of donor assistance to making sure that we go beyond that and engage many areas of different collaboration by exchanging and sharing knowledge, experiences, and best practices. The even better news is that FAO and many partners are already doing it. And we're very excited that we are doing it with even SP countries. And I think Roratoma has mentioned that each country is actually also bringing in these best experiences which are already existing. FAO is working with all these partners. And I'm glad to want to point out some of the examples that actually are going to be discussed in the sessions coming. And these examples I'm not going to go in details because I have Peter Wobbs, who is going to be talking on youth, and other partners that are coming from countries, and Susan and other partners are coming from countries are going to be talking about empowerment of rural women. But there are quite a few examples. You will see that for the youth, and I think you are on the slide number 5, FAO has had tremendous experience in working with countries and other partners at country level. For this program, as it will be explained later on, you will see that it has been addressing the challenges to ensure that youth get attracted to agriculture. There are so many challenges for the youth, even though we do know that some of them have ascended from getting an education and being able to get employed. But you see that there's so many high rates of unemployment in our countries, not only for the youth in the rural areas that have these challenges, but also even the youth that actually have graduated and cannot find jobs. Why can't these youth be employed in the agriculture sector? Because of the impediments and limited factors such as access to financial markets, and sometimes the access to markets for the youth becoming extremely difficult because of the international influence on supermarkets and rigorous standards that actually do require very challenging or sometimes changing requirements in the supply chain. So these are some of the challenges that the youth are involved, but you get an example and examples later on in the session on how this is happening. I'll give you one of the examples. For you go to slide, yes. FAO has worked on generating information that would help countries to be informed about ownership and rights to land, men and women. And this information is generated for 80 countries, and that is a good resource that many countries are using to be able to work on their land reforms, as well as ensuring that there's actually involvement of participation between men and women, whether it's at community and a national level, to ensure that the resource that is so key is actually equitable and accessible. There are also examples of our work, not only on access to land, but on gender equitable value chain. We talk so much on value chains, from farm to fork, but we don't realize that along the value chain, a lot of our key actors, and these are women, are compromised because we don't have enough knowledge, and there's not much guidance to most of our partners on how we could engage the farmers, especially the women farmers, move to the higher value chain and generate income for the good of the community and the countries. So there's also going to be work on that, and actually many countries are involved. I'm not going to, you can move on to the South-South cooperation. An example, I think later on, it will be given on how FAO has tried also for empowering women, come up with an internal South-South, we called it learning share, knowledge share or fair, to learn from each other. 10 countries in December were actually put together from our counterparts participants from counterparts who are member states, but also FAO and the civil society in 10 of these countries. They came together and they came up with excellent results, which I think will also be presented for sharing later on. On youth, there's going to be also information that will be shared to you for youth empowerment. FAO has done tremendous amount of work that would be very useful to promote youth opportunity for employment, but also decent employment by focusing on awareness raising, policy assistance, capacity development, and technical support. Most of this work has been developed in many countries, and one of the example that will be given to you is a junior farmer field learning school that actually started in Mozambique in 2003. As of now, you realize that there are about 16 countries that actually are benefiting from this, and there has been so many partners that have picked up this approach that is helping the youth gain experience, gain the skills, not only for production, but also marketing and entrepreneurship. So these are some of the things that actually are going to be shown and provided to you for exchange. Finally, let me also highlight that what is key and is going to be very important is not only sharing the exchange for the sake of it. We've had an experience that when you share the exchange in a framework for a purpose, you're moving forward. And an example is that we picked up in the 10 countries where there was exchange of learning from the experience on the ground, that key areas were identified that worked in particular countries and with partners that have moved ahead, where countries now are going to create a community of practice where areas such as rural savings and credit cooperatives in Ethiopia, how are they going to be outscaled and upscaled elsewhere? Or farmers' field and life schools in Uganda, how do they move to somewhere else? Or mechanism to link producers to market, how are they going to be upscaled elsewhere? So with these few words, I would really hope that we leave this place with a concrete framework and actions on moving forward, where SCP, a huge platform for South-South cooperation, would have programs that will be beneficial for our countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ndisal. Now I'll pass on the floor to Ms. Catherine Ellis.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and thank you very much for the opportunity to bring the Commonwealth's perspectives to this very important topic. One of the core principles of the Commonwealth is to value the richness that diversity brings. We're an association of 53 member states. Most are developing countries, and some are very large, like India. Some are very small, Tuvalu and Nauru in the Pacific. Some are wealthy, and some are quite poor. But despite the disparity, every member country of the Commonwealth has an equal voice around the table in decision making, and it's widely recognised that the experiences and the innovation of one developing country can be very, very valuable to another developing country that has similar context. And that diversity brings a richness of experience and of circumstances and of innovation. And we try as an organisation to facilitate and share that to really support our member countries, really aiming for a true manifestation of our name, Commonwealth. We have a number of different programs under the two pillars of democracy and development. And I'd like to just share a few of those that I think are relevant to this topic in this symposium. Before I go into the youth area, which is obviously my specialty, I just want to talk about, we have a organisation-wide technical assistance program. It's a long-standing, well-recognised program, and it provides technical assistance mostly on policy and institution building work in various program areas. And we deploy about 60 long-term experts every year into our member countries. And 95% of those are into countries in Africa, Caribbean and Pacific, and 75% of those experts are from developing countries, so we consider it to be South-South cooperation, so it's 75% of that program. A couple of examples. We currently have a public health expert from Ghana deployed in Sierra Leone after the Ebola crisis to assist with strengthening the public health system, particularly in terms of resilience and preparation for responding to difficult situations. A trade expert from Sri Lanka was vital in guiding the government of Seychelles through the WTO accession process and successfully achieving accession in April last year. And we deploy a number of judges from Uganda, South Africa, Nigeria, Bahamas, as well as the UK, into jurisdictions like Seychelles, Vanuatu, Kiribati, Lesotho and Namibia. And what the work they do is reducing case backlogs and also quite often delivering landmark rulings that set precedents that change circumstances going forward. One other example, it's a little bit old now, but because we have a focus on rural and agriculture in this symposium, I thought I'd bring it up. We had a livestock expert from Tanzania deployed into Grenada after the hurricanes in 2005, 4 and 5, and he ended up actually being there for nearly 6 years and rebuilt the livestock industry of Grenada, including setting up schools for farmers and also dairy industry networks, and introducing innovations like artificial insemination and gaining more acceptance of those. In the youth area, we also have a program where we embed trade advisors from, again, mostly developing countries into member countries to provide support to the governments on trade activities. In the youth area, youth development, really it's a prime area for South-South cooperation. We see young people in developing countries seize initiative all the time to be leading and driving change, and the governments and other institutions in those countries often are also achieving really great innovations to empower young people and address youth unemployment in particular and disenfranchisement of young people. And our Commonwealth countries, we classify young people as aged 15 to 29, and over 60% of the population is under the age of 30, and in a number of countries it's actually over 70%. So as my colleague here mentioned, we have the opportunity there to create a demographic dividend or a ticking time bomb. And a lot of the progress that's been made through education is wonderful, but if there's not then opportunities for those young people to have jobs, to be included in decision making and really feel like they're contributing members of society, that education actually can create an issue because they become informed and educated young people who are not happy, and it really, it actually can exacerbate the problem. So the Commonwealth takes very much a view that young people are assets and who can really make major contributions to the development and nation building of their societies. And that means not just being beneficiaries, but really taking a very key role as actors in change. And we have, as part of our work, we have a lot of different programs, but as part of our work, a big focus on youth entrepreneurship. And we see this as a really key part of addressing youth unemployment. As far back as the early 1990s, actually had a Commonwealth Youth Credit Initiative program which advanced models of supporting young people to start up businesses. At the moment, we have two initiatives that I think are relevant to this forum. One is called the Commonwealth Alliance of Young Entrepreneurs, and it's a network model where we have brought together networks of young entrepreneurs, firstly in the Asia region, and most recently, and then have replicated the model in the Caribbean region, which includes Canada, and also in East Africa, and we're starting to move on Southern Africa at the moment. I'm not going to talk about that one anymore because we actually have Shaban Khalid here, who's the president of Kai Asia and one of the founding members of the original Kai network, to talk about it as a case study later on today. But just to suffice to say, what that model does is brings together young entrepreneurs to share their knowledge, all from developing countries who all understand each other's contexts. We also have developed a policy guide on youth entrepreneurship, and this is where we have a big focus on policy development in national youth policies generally and mainstreaming of young people through other policies like health and gender, etc. But in this space, it's specifically a guide on youth entrepreneurship, which we developed in partnership with UNCTAD. And the next step, and what that guide does is it's a guide for policymakers to create enabling policy environments for an ideal youth ecosystem for entrepreneurship. And the guide has a lot of really good examples as well, which are drawn a lot from developing countries. And what we are planning to do as next steps is to run regional workshops to build capacity of senior officials and other key actors in the entrepreneurship space in that context, and then take it to the next level of technical assistance at the national level to really bring cohesive strategies and national action plans around entrepreneurship that will allow a lot of the different actors to be brought to the table. So not just the policymakers, but the regulators, the private sector, the young entrepreneurs themselves, the education institutions who should be doing entrepreneurship education, all the different players together. And so we're planning to start rolling that out, and I think that might be an area be interesting in terms of scaling and discussion in this forum. And the other next step is that we see that there's a real opportunity to create special addendum to this policy guide focused on particular sectors such as agriculture, such as tourism and blue and green economies. So sunrise sectors for young people. And we'd be interested in obviously partnering with some of the players here who are have a lot of expertise in those spaces. We also, one of the great things about my job is I get to meet fantastic young people, and I was smiling when I was listening to the Secretary General from La Francophonie because she was talking about how inspiring it is and the genius that you see amongst young people. Every year we run a Commonwealth Youth Awards for excellence in development work, and we often have young entrepreneurs come through that initiative and and the idea is to recognise that the work they do and showcase it and highlight it so that policymakers see what young people are capable of, and also that other young people are inspired to take action. And a couple of examples: last year's winner was a young man from from Tanzania. He was the Africa region winner, but also the Pan Commonwealth winner. And he, at 25, had set up a micro venture capital fund and was investing in young people setting up their own businesses. And he'd supported about 5,000 young people to start their own businesses. And that model is ripe for scaling across other countries, and in fact he's starting to sort of have tentative points in. He's also helped us set up the Commonwealth Alliance of Young Entrepreneurs in East Africa, so he's working in that space as well. Another the Caribbean winner last year was a young woman from Trinidad and Tobago, and she had set up an eco firm using creating cosmetics out of mango seeds and avocado seeds, and she was employing marginalised women in local communities to do the work and was returning 50% of the profits of that company back into local NGOs as well. And this year we haven't announced the finalists yet. I think the announcement's going out today, so here's a bit of information hot off the press. But we have two finalists who, again, focused on agriculture. One has developed an application that allows small farm owners to register their financial information and create a history that will allow them to access credit. And another one he's a biotech engineer who's using locally available natural resources to create cattle feed at much lower costs, but also using employing local labour to do that and creating jobs. So we see that we see these young people. We support them to some extent, but I think there's huge opportunity potentially to find these treasures and work out ways to actually help them scale their work, share their work, and have them mentored as well through their things. One final point that I would like to make, which is a little bit different, I think, from probably what you'll hear from other people around youth development today. We believe very, very much in the enabling environments for young people, and that, of course, includes policy work. But what it also includes is the youth work profession, and this is a profession that's very much under-recognised and under-resourced, and yet it's absolutely critical in multiple countries to young people really being supported and being able to, and being developed and being able to realise their potential. And in the same way that we recognise teachers as professionals and social workers as professionals and lawyers and engineers as professionals, we should be recognising youth workers as professionals who are trained and properly qualified to do their work. And so I think it would be very interesting for us to have a discussion about, as part of all the initiatives that we're talking about, empowering young people in rural areas, we're talking about also training and making sure that the people who work with those young people are properly trained and properly qualified, and investing in that. And the Commonwealth's done quite a lot of work in this space over the years, developing a diploma of youth work, which has now been upgraded to a Bachelor of Youth Work in partnership with the University of West Indies. And it's now being developed into an open education resource that will be available to any university to pick up that intellectual property and create a Bachelor of Youth Development work, and join a consortium that will feed back case studies and really enrich the coursework, particularly case studies from developing countries. So again, it becomes a South-South cooperation model. So there's a few examples. Yeah, sorry, I know I've gone a bit long, but we don't actually have any other opportunity this 2 days to tell you about what we're doing, so I thought I'd take the chance. But I think, you know, we're not a huge organisation and we're not we're not overloaded with funds, but we do have a lot of ideas and areas of expertise, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what other organisations are doing here these 2 days and how we might be able to collaborate and work together going forward to promote and use the ideas that are being developed in very innovative ways in developing countries, and leverage that opportunity that South-South and triangular cooperation provides. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ellis. I'm sorry for I mean, you know, we are running very late in the time, but I still have to give the floor to the CPLP, and then we will have the last speaker, which will take from the floor, and I hope that will be very short, so that we'll have time for discussion, and we'll have our moderator who will, of course, set the... So you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I will be speaking in Portuguese. Please do. I'd like to greet all of those who are on the high table and also other participants. I have many ideas and little time to discuss them. It would be useful to make the best use of this time, and in doing so, I just want to convey a message. The community of Portuguese language countries is something as was created to strengthen the links between its members, and it is indeed channeling cooperation at intergovernmental level. I'd just like us to now look directly at slide 11, and here I just want you to observe the geographic location of the member states of the CPLP. We are scattered across the four continents. We have 3 oceans, and with a population of more than 250 million. If we were to look at the regional groups our member states belong to, we would realize that there is much potential for South-South and triangular cooperation. We could target more than 800 million in this way. The next slide. And CPLP cooperation is currently founded on the cross-cutting nature, and we are looking at furthering work on civic education and other areas of cooperation. We have food security, youth, and other areas. How has the CPLP done in furthering South-South cooperation? Looking at our documents, our strategy, which was introduced in 2009, it introduced a number of goals, focusing essentially on strengthening ownership, sustainability, and the need for beneficiaries to acquire methodologies in the best way. Looking at the reality on the ground in our member states is important, because as previous speakers have said, we have to have synergy, coordination, and harmonization in this line, in this vein, we have to align action proposed in terms of the empowerment of beneficiaries to further strengthen ownership and meet the clear objectives we have set for ourselves. In order to maximize this intervention, we have to be very careful in terms of stewarding the capacity and resources we have available. When you look at harmonization and specializing our intervention in various areas, this can only be done based on strategic cooperation plans which have been determined. And we have been, as such, engaging in dialogue on a permanent basis to benefit beneficiaries and to ensure that they take ownership of these programs. Now, when you look at aligning the priorities of the member states and beneficiaries, we always have to uphold models for governance of beneficiaries and the areas of intervention which were agreed by consensus. Now, member states must coordinate amongst each other, and they must develop a series of projects which would focus on results. So we would have to have good planning, good execution, good monitoring, evaluation, and accountability. The ACP Secretary General referred to this, and we have been working on this in the CPLP. Therefore, it is important that there is exchange of information by the member states, that this would improve the accountability process. Now, the strategic plan developed are a tool that must involve the efforts of individual member states, but must also ensure through complementarity that there is greater capitalization on those efforts. And this would further aid in the development process of the states. Now, there have been difficulties in this process, and these relate to issues in coordination of initiatives. Therefore, we have been guided by a number of principles in terms of increasing cooperation between states, exchanging information, promoting solidarity, democracy, human rights, and also tackling the multidimensional, multi-sectoral, and cross-cutting nature of interventions to improve our focus on the partnership and ensuring that that partnership looks at all of the aspects in the sectors, and to also further promote the initiatives to be taken by the member states. This has meant we can strengthen food security, health, energy, and that we can further progress on looking at health, culture, education. And we've also managed to further boost cooperation in areas of economics and finance, and looking at sectors like health, the youth. Now, we are most active in terms of South-South and triangular cooperation in a number of sectors. We have been looking at good practices which have involved all member states. This was an initiative co-organized by the CPLP, the World Bank, the CPLP Civil Society Forum, and other partners. We've been looking at child work, child labor, the CPLP, the ILO, the nutritional program for eradication of child labor has been involved, and including the business leaders, all working on the area of food security and nutritional security as well. We've been working in partnership with universities, parliamentarians, and partners in consultation. And this is an excellent example of the kind of cooperation that can be achieved in the CPLP context, all sitting at the same table and looking at the same issues. And this is an experience we would like to replicate, and it has been recognized internationally. Cooperation in food and nutritional security is one of the drivers we would like to explore in greater detail. To save time, I would just like to stop here and see if we can further debate on this and focus on the experience we've had. Thank you very much.
Out of time, I would plead the one who is taking the floor from the floor, Mr. Roger Nagit, to have 2 minutes. Okay, please.
All right, I just need to say hi and hello, right? No, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Okay, I'll be quick on this one. I just want to share, because we've been here, the UN Office for South-South Cooperation, I've been here for 40 years, helping, supporting, assisting all our stakeholders, partners within the UN system and external of UN system in regards to South-South cooperation and triangular cooperation. I just want to be quick in regards to the products and services that we do. First things first, we are the Secretariat to the High-Level Committee on South-South Cooperation of the UN system, and therefore we serve as the author of the report of the Secretary General on South-South and on the status of South-South cooperation every year. It's an integration of all the reports coming from different agencies and partners all across the globe on discussing policy dialogues on South-South cooperation. We also own the 3-in-1 multilateral support architecture. So we have the Global South-South Development Academy, which package and document development solutions. And I already requested last night that all of these things that's happening today and tomorrow be part of a compendium that can be presented at high-level committee sometime in May. We also own the Global South-South Development Expo, wherein we showcase and market development solutions all across the globe. We are now on the 8th series of it, the Global Expo. And we also have what you call the South-South Technology Exchange System, where we do technology transfer. It's based in Shanghai. We do matchmaking of the capacity based on supply and demand. And all other services that we do. We could talk about that outside of this plenary, just so I comply with the 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for keeping this time. And as I said, I regret that we will not have the opportunity to have discussion for this session. But for next session, as we say, this was setting the scenes. So I think we will only make the conclusion of this session. And then in the next session, we'll have the opportunities to discuss, because there will be in practice what they are doing, what is being done. So I'll just try to make the conclusion of this session. So we know, women and youth are crucial to well-being of our families, communities, nations, all the humanity. All of us here today, countries, organizations, individuals, are committed to pooling efforts and learn from each other so we can do more. Recent major global commitments compel us to do more for women and youth. Given the scale of the action required, we have no other option than to partner. It is not only these commitments that drive us, it is also the concrete examples of what is happening on the ground that we'll hear about today. These are examples that can be upscaled through South-South and triangular cooperation. We're excited about how this practical solution can be shared, multiplied, upscaled. We know South-South and triangular cooperation is a multifaceted and has many sides and many faces, and I end this session by challenging all countries in the ACP to consider what they can bring and share so we can accelerate real change for women and youth. And before ending, let's give a big applause to the presenters of this session today. Thank you.